Hello and welcome back to another FPL captaincy video. Last week we once again captained Haaland, and unfortunately it was his second blank in a row, and it was another failure for our Game Week 7 captaincy. Obviously the one that you probably would have wanted to go for last week was Saka against Southampton. I did prefer Havertz, he was my differential pick from last week, but both of them did turn out to be some pretty good picks. So we're going to take a look at Game Week 8 this week and see how we can get on. So this week we're keeping 3 of the same players in Salah, Haaland and Saka, and we're also adding in Dominic Solanke this week, who is going to replace Cole Palmer. Obviously Liverpool are playing against Chelsea, Palmer being the player with the away fixture against Liverpool, and Liverpool being one of the best defences of the season so far. It wouldn't really make too much sense to be bringing him in or captaining him at all this week. So Solanke's coming in against the debatably weaker opponent in West Ham, having a home fixture as well, which is always beneficial. Salah also has the home fixture, whereas Haaland and Saka are both away this week against Wolves and Bournemouth. Now, as always, taking a look at the predicted points for this week, we have Fantasy Football Hub and FPL Team. Now, Salah is actually quite high on the ranking for Fantasy Football Hub this weekend and pretty low for FPL Team. You can see him at 8.3, which is higher than what they expect Haaland to get against Wolves, only 8.2. But on FPL Team, Salah's at 6.8, which is well lower than Haaland and a little bit lower than what Solanke's getting as well against West Ham. So a bit of a difference in point predictions between Hub and FPL Team this week. Obviously you can see Haaland pretty similar, 8.2 and 8.4. Saka is right down the bottom at 5.6 and 5.7. So the away fixture against Bournemouth, neither website is predicting Saka to do quite well. I suppose 5 points is still pretty decent, but when you compare it to the likes of your Haalands in the 8s, it is a bit of a difference. Then Solanke down at 5.8 for Fantasy Football Hub, so kind of the opposite of what we've got for Salah, with Fantasy Football Hub having it well higher than FPL Team. This time for Solanke, FPL Team has it at 7.1 points for Solanke against West Ham, and Hub only has them at 5.8. So these are the stats for the season then. Currently leading the way in XG is of course Erling Haaland at 6.3. Obviously hasn't scored in 2 games, so his XG is slowly climbing back up there to match up with his goals. Salah hasn't scored in a few games either. His XG is now matched his goal output at 3.9 and 4 goals, which is kind of what you expect to happen when the fixtures get a little bit more difficult. Saka down at 2 and Solanke at 3.4. I did skip over the X minutes. It is worth keeping in mind that Saka is down at 67 expected minutes for this game week only. I imagine that's because of the injury or the slight niggle that he picked up over the international break. He is expected to go back to the 89-90 minutes after that, after this game against Bournemouth at the weekend. Now for expected assists, he is still leading the way, 3.2, which is a lot higher than everyone else on this list, and he has picked up 7 assists as well, which is huge. He is the top assister for the Premier League this season. Then of course return chances, we are pretty similar for Salah and Haaland. This is based on Fantasy Football Hub's data, so obviously when we're looking at the predicted points, Salah is still expected to score 8+ points, similar to what Haaland has. So the return output is similar as well, with Haaland just leading the way at 72%. Next up, we're taking a look at the odds of scoring and the clean sheet odds of the player's opponents. So Haaland is again leading the way at 58%. I don't think there's been a week this season where he hasn't been. Obviously the bookies are always going to have him with a high chance of scoring. Salah is however predicted, or got a higher chance of scoring. This is all according to Odds Checker. Higher chance of scoring a goal than Solanke does, despite having the more difficult opponent. In terms of scoring 2 goals, however, Salah and Solanke are sitting there both at 13%, equaling each other. However, Haaland is over double that at 28%. So again, based on the odds, Haaland has a much higher chance of getting a big haul than anyone else on this list. Saka is quite low at a 33% chance to score a goal, which is still decent, but only an 8% chance to score two. Now, in terms of the opponent's clean sheet odds, it is Bournemouth with the highest chance of keeping a clean sheet this week with 17%. I think it's quite clear to see that the Bournemouth defence is pretty highly rated by all of these odds, and then it is Chelsea at 13% chance to keep a clean sheet against Liverpool, followed by West Ham with an 11% chance, and then Wolves only at a 9% chance to keep a clean sheet. So it is Haaland who takes all of the awards here with the highest chance of scoring, two goals, and the opponent with the lowest clean sheet odds of the four. So looking at the set pieces, of course, Haaland, Salah, Saka all on penalties. Haaland is listed as a free kick taker, but again, it's not really something that we can rely on because he's not going to be taking all free kicks. Saka on all the corners, which is obviously a big point of Arsenal's goal threat, with Gabriel scoring a couple goals from those corners this year, which obviously contributes to Saka's high assist tally. Then we have Solanke listed as an orange penalty taker because we don't know if he is the official penalty taker just yet for Spurs. I believe Son is due back this weekend, who is obviously the main penalty taker, but Solanke was the penalty taker for Bournemouth last season. He is pretty decent from the spot, so we don't really know. We're going to wait and see. We haven't had a Spurs penalty yet to determine that, so he probably is going to be the penalty taker if Son's not on the pitch. Personally, I think Son will continue to take the penalties, but again, he can get subbed quite often, so could potentially be Solanke in the penalties for the later stages of the game. So for rest, of course, we've just had an international break, so no one in this list has had club football for the last week. However, Salah, obviously playing for Egypt, they played on Tuesday night, I believe it was, but Salah wasn't in the squad, so there's nothing to worry about there. Everyone else, I believe, hasn't played since Sunday, so we've essentially got a full week's rest for everyone. Saka and Solanke are both playing on Saturday. Solanke has the early kick-off at 12:30, and then Saka has the later kick-off, I believe, at 5:30. It could be 4:30, whatever time the late kick-offs are on Saturdays. Then, of course, on Sunday we have two matches, which is the Liverpool-Chelsea game and the Man City-Wolves game, so we get an extra day's rest for both of those guys. And wrapping things up with our chances and kind of looking at how the opponent's defence have got on throughout the season. So Salah is actually up against one of the stronger defences of the season so far in Chelsea. They're sitting at 17th for expected goals conceded, and they are kind of making up for that with their actual goals conceded with 8. So they are the 4th best defence in the league so far, Chelsea. So again, probably wouldn't be looking at Salah this week. You can see by the chances conceded as well, they've only conceded 17 chances down that right hand side, so if you were going to go for anyone, it would probably be the striker for Liverpool. Of course, Salah does take the penalties as well, which does give him that boost. However, again, like I said, I can't see this being a high-scoring game. Liverpool are very solid in defence. Chelsea are very solid in defence as well. So I probably would be avoiding Salah this week. Now, when we look at Haaland, they are playing against the 3rd worst defence in the league, and actually the team that's conceded the most amount of goals so far by a large margin as well, with 21 goals conceded. And I believe second place, I think it's Brentford, only 15 goals conceded as well. So there's 6 goals. They've conceded 6 more goals than the 2nd worst defence so far. So they've got a 13.6 expected goals conceded. So they are massively conceding more than they should be, basically, is what I'm trying to say. 57 chances down the middle as well, which makes Haaland a huge threat for this weekend. I think the only thing that would potentially put you off is the fact that it's an away fixture against Wolves. Other than that, everything's really telling you that Haaland is the one to go for this week. Saka playing against a mid-range defence in Bournemouth, sitting as the 12th worst defence at 8.6 expected goals conceded and 10 goals conceded. Again, like I said, similar with Chelsea, most teams are conceding chances down the middle, so 20 chances conceded down the right-hand side, which is the least amount of chances for Bournemouth. You can see 44 down the middle and 24 from the left-hand side. So once again, I think it's another week where Saka maybe picks up an assist, maybe doesn't really do too much. I can't see him getting a big haul though. And then finally moving on to Solanke playing against West Ham. West Ham have been a little bit better defensively recently. They were one of the worst defences in the first couple of game weeks. The last 3 or so game weeks they have kind of improved, conceding less shots, not really conceding as much XGC, but yeah, they're still not the best defence, they're still not doing too great, but they have improved, which is something to keep a note of. However, 56 chances down the middle as well, so even though they are the 8th worst defence, which isn't too bad, they are still conceding a ton of chances down the middle, similar to the likes of Wolves with 56 and 57 chances. So with that being said, once again we're going for Haaland. We're keeping it boring, but what else can you do? He's playing against the team that's conceded the most goals in the league. So Haaland is the one we're picking. As always, highest chance to score. Wolves have the lowest clean sheet odds. Wolves have conceded the most goals. 3rd worst defence in the league. This is one of the times where Haaland is going to make up for those last 2 blanks in the last 2 games. He's got that extra day's rest as well over the likes of Saka and Salah. Scored 2 hat-tricks in his last 3 games versus Wolves, which is an interesting fact to keep in mind. In the last 3 fixtures, Haaland has scored, I believe, 7 goals in the last 3 fixtures, with 2 hat-tricks and then 1 goal in between those hat-tricks as well. So definitely something to keep in mind, but I'm going for Haaland this week. He is the pick of choice. And then, of course, as I mentioned last week, I did want to add in a different section because I like to kind of add in a differential captaincy at the end of the videos. The last couple of weeks have went quite well. Obviously we had Nicholas Jackson and the time that he scored, I think it was a hat-trick, it could have been 2 goals, I can't really remember, and then obviously we picked Havertz out last week. This week I want to pick Dominic Solanke. Doesn't really count as a differential captaincy because I did have him in the 4 original captains, but I do think he is someone that could do quite well, and he is still a differential captaincy. You know, I don't think a lot of people are really going to be captaining him this week, but again, as I mentioned already, conceding a lot of chances down the middle. West Ham are the 5th most conceded chances centrally as well, which is something to keep note of. And again, I think the 4 teams above them are really only like 57 chances, 58 chances. I think there's one with 60, which could potentially be Leicester, I want to say, 60 chances conceded centrally. But as well, when looking at his recent form in the last 3 matches, only one person has more XG than him, and it's Kai Havertz. So I think with this fixture against West Ham and conceding so many chances down the middle, Solanke has a good chance to do quite well this week. So that is it for the video. We're picking Haaland for Gameweek 8 and Solanke as a differential if you wanted to go a little bit different. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. Hopefully we can make up for our last 2 blanks and we can get on a nice succeeding streak again. So if you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like, make sure to subscribe if you are new, and I'll see you all in the next video.